Hey everybody, welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. My next guest is Michelle Lewis-Miller, the Vice President and Head of Strategy and Transformation at SAP. Today we are talking about the work Michelle did to save the company money through an incredible AI use case and improve customer experience. Michelle has a wealth of experience working at both SAP as well as Expedia. We're talking about how to keep the human in customer service. We're talking about the importance of customer experience in the B2B world. And we're also giving you advice for how to succeed in a tech world that is rapidly changing. So you don't want to miss those career tips. Please enjoy Michelle Lewis-Miller. Michelle, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast, all the way from snowy Seattle today. That's so cool, so unique.
Yeah, it's a little snowy outside. I've got my hot cocoa next to me, ready to go. Keep me nice and warm.
Yeah, Seattle's so
Yeah.
pretty. We've been up there a few times, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's actually raining down here in LA,
Oh, see, that's
so
not right. That's not why you live in LA. You don't live there for the rain.
well, I'm taking my kids to go see Dog Man
Oh,
later today, and rainy day, so
perfect.
it'll be fun.
Perfect.
But it's so nice to meet you. We were just chatting that I heard of you through my friends at Coveo, and they were sharing your
Yeah.
incredible case study about AI. And I know our audience really want to hear about the AI stuff, but you've had a really successful career. I love how you talk about your career on LinkedIn that give you a mountain to climb and you'll text from the
Yeah.
top saying I made it. So no matter the challenge, let's just talk about how you think about your career
Mm.
arc and how it's going now.
Yeah, it's been great. I am one of those few people who have been mostly rewarded for taking really, really big risks. And I think unfortunately that's created an animal because now there's not a risk I see that I'm not saying, maybe don't say it's impossible. Maybe we can do it actually if we really attack it. And that's pretty much defined a lot of my career. It's been one big leap after another, and I've had some spectacular failures along the way, but it's been one of those blessings where more or less I've failed in environments that welcome that attempt and encourage me to try again. And I have been really blessed for that. So, I mean, I started my career in publishing, traditional publishing, like lots of
Hmm.
papers stacked together and you have a red pen, right? It couldn't be more different on the surface from what I'm doing today. But there was another example where I said, you know what, this isn't for me, and this is not an industry that's quite ready yet to innovate. And I hopped over into tech, and I've never looked back. And I've always been interested. My entire career has sort of been defined by that intersection now between knowledge and content and the very bleeding edge sort of technology and innovation. That's been my whole career, the entire way.
Hmm. Love that. I feel very similar
Ah,
that I've always been interested in technology, communication, behavior, and what an exciting time to
yeah.
be, on this ride. Talk about SAP Concur and what you are up to over there.
Yes. So SAP Concur, Concur was acquired by SAP a little more than, I think we're coming up on 10 years now, and it's a great fit for both of those companies. Concur, I always liken the culture at Concur to sort of a scrappy little, it's big now, but it still maintains that scrappy little cloud company vibe that I really love. So that combined with sort of SAP's more steady, stable backing has just been a total
Mhm.
recipe for success. So here you have Concur out there innovating, trying things, kind of being a scrappy fighter. And meanwhile, you got SAP resources behind it to kind of sort of bankroll and stabilize that. So the risk is a lot lower. So it's a lot of fun. And SAP Concur, most folks working in the corporate environment have some experience with Concur, either for expense management or for travel solutions. But um, one of the things that I really appreciate about the particular solution suite with Concur is it's not it's not the kind of rest on his laurels. So even though it's definitely the
Mhm.
market leader in this space, you still have these hackathons with developers getting into rooms and saying, what can we do different? What can we do better? So that's the culture at Concur, and that's the culture at SAP in general too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. So you are B2B provider. So
Yes.
anything with internal travel for like employees.
Yes, that's right. B2B and offers some corporate travel solutions. But what's nice is it integrates into expense management. So one of the big difficulties, especially at a large enterprise company, is connecting all the pipelines together to make it easy to do expense tracking. So if you've ever traveled for business, you know that, and you've suffered from an ancient travel policy where you're like photocopying receipts and attaching them
Oh yeah.
to sheets of paper in triplicate carbon copy. I don't know if the kids these days even know what I mean when I say carbon copy. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is the solution to that. It lets you do your travel and just immediately pipe those expenses right into an expense report and hit submit. And that's the sort of thing I love. Yes.
So people always ask me if there's a big
Mhm.
difference between B2B and B2C
Mhm.
and what are the big differences.
Yeah.
Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yes. One of the big differences, from my point of view, is that with B2B, the stakes are a lot different. They're a lot higher in some ways. So with an individual end user customer type, switching costs are a lot lower in general. If they don't like it, they'll just go elsewhere. They have no particular personal investment in a solution that they're using or that they've selected. A lot of times, though, with B2B, those solutions that have been selected have a lot of personal career investment behind them. So, what I mean is, you're often working with administrators who went out and sold your solution to their leaders as the ideal.
Mhm.
And so they have a very personal stake in making sure things succeed and work well. And that level of investment into the solution creates a really interesting tension. Even if they're an end user at their company, there's an interesting tension because they're working with the people at that company who selected that solution. So it creates a really interesting dynamic you simply do not get in the B2C space in the same way.
Mhm.
I would also say it's a very relational type of situation, probably for the same reason. So, in this day and age, as much as we have automated and we have really cool stuff coming up with AI, everything still works on relationships. And so the better B2Bs understand that. And not only do they maintain and cultivate relationships with the decision makers at these businesses they're working with, they also are making a big effort to cultivate and build relationships with the end users at those businesses too. So this is very much a relationship business in a way that B2C is just not quite in the same way. It's a very transactional sort of one-way relationship in many ways with B2C, whereas B2B, it's more of a two-way sort of relationship.
I know our audience listening to you, the next question they want to ask you is, so how do you cultivate relationships in the B2B environment? Like, what do you do that's unique to nurture these relationships?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. Keeping your promises is one. And when I say that, a lot of people tend to take that very literally. Like, I've had a conversation with someone where I've said I'm going to do something and then I do that. And that is absolutely true. But I also feel it's very much in the environments that you welcome those users into, keeping your promise. So if your marketing campaign is out there saying this is an easy experience, we're thinking about you, you're at the forefront of our design decisions, and then you get into the solution and it's very clearly not user friendly, right? That's a violation of a promise you made, right? You said you were doing one thing and then you're very clearly doing another. So whenever I think about like how do you cultivate a relationship, you've got to be thinking about how am I demonstrating integrity and how am I demonstrating that I do what I say I'm going to do? Because business is a very volatile world, and the more you can know exactly what you're going to get from someone and they're going to give you exactly what they said they were going to give you, the better. And just like in our personal lives, right? We trust people who do and act as they say they will do and act, right? So to me, that's absolutely number one. Keeping your promises, not just about what you say with your mouth and what agreements you sign on the paper. It's about delivering on the experiences that you promise to people. And sometimes those promises are explicit, like our marketing says we have an amazing, incredible, easy user experience. Sometimes it's implied, like you have a button that's out there and it's prominent and it says, hey, do this. If you click this button, you can do this. And if they click it and it doesn't work, that's a broken promise too. So it's a little more challenging than just keeping your spoken word. Yes.
So your title, Michelle, is so unique, Head of Strategy and Transformation. What does that actually look like in your role?
Yes. So talk about being blessed. I get to have great ideas and then I get to go out and make those ideas a reality, and find the talented people in the organization surrounding me who have the expertise and have the enthusiasm and energy to make it happen and help coordinate everything together to bring that thing over the line. And anytime you're trying to execute a big change internally or externally outward toward customers, you know that half the battle is technical, just the mechanics, the tactical logistics, and the other half is people oriented. So I always say my job is like half great ideas and half just being a great like cheerleader. just
Mm-hmm.
just like
Yeah.
encouraging when you hit bumps in the road. So I'm really blessed in my job. What it looks like is I look at our roadmaps for what we want experiences to be, what technology is available to us now, what technology is going to be coming and when. I kind of look down the road and peek around the corner a little bit whenever I can. And then I get to look at what we're actually doing and say, you know what, let's take this thing here and let's accelerate it, or let's deprioritize this and put it in the back seat. Or, hey, we've been talking a lot about doing this thing and we're not really keeping the promise on that one. And so we need to either stop promising it or we need to go deliver it. And then I get to kind of hold the hand of our organizations and customers through the process of making that a reality.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's great. I think you have a very unique way of expressing yourself and speaking that it's a hard balance to be on the technical side and be able to look at these roadmaps and the technology roadmaps and then translate them for people and be the people side too. So I
Yeah.
could see that's probably why you've been so successful. Let's actually talk a little bit about the engineering
Mhm.
room of your work. I heard through Coveo about your case study with the AI, the ROI that you
Yeah.
achieved with the 30% decline in, sounds very technical, but case
That's
submits
right.
for every 1,000 search sessions. And I know my audience, their ears are going, this, what is she saying? Can you just talk about the case study and how AI through Coveo helped you elevate your interactions?
Yes. So what's fun about cloud, let me set the stage. What's fun about cloud is you can never just be focused on margin for your shareholders, right? You can't always just be myopically focused on reducing your costs and widening that margin and making it like pretty. In cloud, even in B2B cloud, you have to think obsessively about your customer experience because you're often using a recurring revenue model, and compared to like on-prem type solutions where software is getting installed onto servers at companies, the switching costs are much lower, and like a customer could decide within a few months to leave you, right? So you really have to invest in that experience and convince them to stay with you, so that those recurring revenues can keep flowing in turn make shareholders happy, right? So you have this balance you have to maintain, this incredibly difficult balance between keeping your margins extremely healthy and shareholders happy, but not doing so at the cost of the customer experience, because the moment you sacrifice that experience to save money, your customers start leaving you. And then guess who's not happy? Your shareholders, right? And I say that because in this case study, it's a perfect example where we needed to do these two things at once. We needed to reduce our costs because we were not able to keep up with the growth in our case volumes. Our revenues were growing, more and more cases were coming in. We simply could just not attack the problem by throwing more people at it, right? That wasn't an option for us. On the same token, we were not willing to just let backlogs of cases pile up. That's not a great customer experience. And we also didn't want to be in a situation where we make it difficult for our customers to find the information they need in the hopes they won't send us a case, right? There are some businesses that use that as a strategy. We'll just make it hard to open a case, right? And then we don't have to deal with the cases, right? So we had to do something to improve the customer experience, help them solve their problems, but we also had to do it in a way that reduced our costs. We couldn't spend a lot of money making that experience happen. And that's where we had this wonderful connection with Coveo, because what we were able to do is take all of this knowledge that we have out there, all of these knowledge assets, these knowledge base articles, product documentation, community posts, all of this stuff, and use that as fuel to feed a generative AI solutioning system that we got from Coveo. So a customer can go in and instead of maybe having to perform a search and click through 4 or 5 different articles, kind of looking through the haystack to find what they need, instead this generated solution just says, hey, I think this is the solution you're looking for. And maybe it's pulling on 3 or 4 different articles to produce that solution. Now the customer, instead of performing 5 or 6 different searches, instead of having to click into multiple articles, like we don't got time for that, Blake, right? We don't got
Yeah,
time. Why do we think our
right.
customers got time for that? Instead, you just get
Totally.
this nice, succinct solution right there at the top of your search results, and you can get out of here. And boy, the results, they sure spoke for themselves. So we had a more than 90% reduction in the number of times customers had to search for every search session, meaning they went in, they searched once, and they just found what they needed and they got out of there. They didn't even have to click on an article, it was just right there. And that was the
Mm-hmm.
customer experience piece, right? Check, got it. And then the benefit to our business on the flip side is we saw this 30% reduction in the amount of times customers were giving up on searching and going to create a case instead. And so for us, that translates to far less case volume. I mean, at the close of the year, we ended with a total reduction year over year case volumes of 9%, which is incredible, which is insane. And that's a direct result of having this solutioning available. So we did right by the customer. And in doing that, we did right by our business too.
Mm-hmm. And as you're speaking, I know the audience is wondering, like, what are the analytics look like? Like, what metrics
Yeah.
were they looking at? Can you talk about the metrics you were looking at and how you gauged if customers were happy, other than you saw they weren't opening tickets?
Yes, yeah. So we looked at two things. We looked at qualitative and quantitative KPIs. On the quantitative side, we were curious in seeing of customers who engage in a self-service activity, they're going to search to find an answer. How many of those customers in that same session go on to create a case? And so that's where you get the case submits for every 1,000 search sessions. So we looked at for every 1,000 sessions we have like this, how many are resulting in case submissions at the end of them. And that helped us understand directly what impact is this change to our search having on case creation behavior. And that's very quantitative. We also looked, we wanted to get an understanding of ease of the activity, right? Sometimes, you would be right in saying, well, maybe they're doing that because they're just so frustrated, they're giving up and they're just leaving the portal altogether, right? That could be a reason you're seeing declining cases. So we really needed to make sure it was because they were getting what they needed, not because they were getting frustrated and leaving. So we looked
Mm-hmm.
at the number of searches they performed in those sessions where they were given a generated answer. And we also looked at another metric, which is the follow-up case creation behavior. So did they circle back later in another session to create a case? And what we saw was pretty telling on that. So whenever the user was served a generated answer, a generated solution in their search session, that's where they had 90% fewer searches. So what we saw loud and clear was users who were not served this new experience, they might have performed 7 or 8 different searches to try to find what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Users who were served this new experience searched just once, and they found what they need.
Wow, that's
And
incredible. Congratulations.
the results really speak. It was amazing. And then qualitatively, we were still not quite satisfied, Blake, because we were like, okay, this is the quantitative, but like if we ask the customers, what are they going to tell us about this experience? So we went out there and we collected feedback along the way. We allowed customers to give us a kind of a survey response, thumbs up, thumbs down, and also free text. And then we had our front office team, just to be double sure. We had our front office teams, our account management teams sitting with customers, talking them through this experience, asking them for their feedback. And overwhelmingly, the feedback was incredibly positive. They loved it. They thought it was super cool. Where we did get actionable feedback on it, it was more like, hey, can you make it do this new thing as well? Or, hey, I think it kind of misunderstood my term. Maybe you need to do a little more training in this area, right? Really useful information. What we didn't see was anyone saying, this made my life worse. Loud and clear, we were like, this made my life better day to day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example of how predictive support is so important, and making your customers' lives easier and better
Yes.
is everything.
Yes, everything. And it can serve your bottom line. In fact, I would say this world we're moving into, right? There's no other way forward. You have to serve your bottom line by serving customers, and this is a really good example of that.
A lot of businesses struggle to make the ROI connection. Was that easy for you to determine the ROI?
Yeah, the ROI was fairly straightforward for us, and that's because we were using an A/B testing model, and so that allowed us to run these existing experience parallel to this new variant experience. And because these are running simultaneously and we're randomizing which experience the users get served, like we're not controlling which users get served which experience. It's totally random, 50-50. That controls for a lot of the variables, and it allows us to see side by side like what was the actual impact of this change and quantify it. And so we found this
Mhm.
one particularly easy to measure in that regard. What still is challenging is when you change the conversation and you say, okay, so you can see that you have 30% fewer case submits out of these search sessions. But what does that translate to in terms of
Mhm.
net case volumes, right? Like there, that is still correlation. And I'm not sure we have a good way in this world to ever make that a causal connection there, but you can get a strong correlation there, but that's still kind of the limit.
Got it. Love that. So it's interesting because this has been probably very good for your career too, to have this AI case study. I mean, there aren't that many at this point.
Mhm. Yeah, it was a big win for sure out the door. We ended up being the first support organization, product support organization within SAP to have a generative solutioning uh, search solution out the door, which was good. We were also among the first in our industry. So absolutely, that was great for my career to be able to say, look what we did, right? Now, it
Yeah.
could have gone the other way. Could have ended
Right.
up not working. But fortunately, like I said, I'm blessed to be in an environment where risk taking of this nature is really welcomed and encouraged. And so I definitely that helped my career as well because I was willing to take that kind of a risk and get out there and do it. And as you know, Blake, this is not really the time to sit back and play it real super duper safe. You need to be taking some really calculated risks in this space, and I would say there's a really strong first mover advantage in when it comes to generative AI technology in particular. So
Yeah, and we're seeing that, I mean, just every day in the news, like so much is changing.
mhm.
The last question I wanted to ask you before we get into rapid fires, there are a lot of people right now who they're kind of on shaky ground. You know, there's been a lot of layoffs in tech, and with AI, like there's just a lot of change happening. Do you have any career advice for people that,
Yeah, yeah,
are interested in a role like yours
yes,
or struggling to find the right opportunity?
absolutely. I have two pieces of advice. The first is don't be overwhelmed by this AI topic and allow that feeling of overwhelm to scare you away from learning about it. This is a time
Mhm.
to really start somewhere and learn about it. You do not have to be, trust and believe, you do not have to be a deeply technical wizard or a developer to understand the basics of how this is operating. And there are some really, really great free online resources that have been set up to facilitate this. You can also just go to ChatGPT and ask it how it all works, and it will walk you through it. I mean, really, you could. And I would say
Yeah.
starting anywhere is better than not starting at all and operating out of a place of kind of like unease and fear. You need to understand what this technology can do and what its limits are, what it can't do. So focus there. That's
Mm-hmm.
number one. Number two is build your soft skills, build your power skills. We just are coming out of a time for the past 10 or 15 years where the emphasis was on STEM and to the detriment, I would say, of the arts. And I think we can all understand why that was the case. But one of the disservices that I think we did to ourselves and to our kids is that by deprioritizing everything else, we kind of rob them of the opportunities that come along with the more artistic side of things. And a lot of power skill development happens in the arts. It does not happen in
Mm-hmm.
STEM. And so I talked to you a little bit earlier about how half of my job, right, is plucking out the good ideas and the risks that seem worth taking, but the other half is being a cheerleader and getting people on board with me and coming along for the ride, right? That's soft skills. That takes significant development of soft skills, and very few people are just born with that. Very few people just are
Yeah.
just granted charisma from above, right? So I would say if you're a person who is thinking you're going to bank your career on your ability to operate with STEM skill sets, you got another thing coming. I'm going to warn you now, because what's going to become only more valuable as we go forward from here is your people skills, ironically. So you need to build those up. So one, don't be afraid of learning about AI, learning about the generative side of that. Get familiar, start somewhere. And two, um, focus on those people skills. Start practice. Get
Mm-hmm.
into a Toastmasters group or something to build your ability to speak in front of people. Right. Start going to the theater and picking up some tricks and tips from actors about how to speak to groups and bring them into an experience.
Love that. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I was very involved with Toastmasters for a really long time. So
I am not
go
surprised.
Toastmasters.
I am not surprised. I was watching some of your videos and I could tell. I was like, this is a very confident public speaker.
I wasn't, and my boss was
Wow.
like, "You cannot speak on a podcast. Go to Toastmasters." And then I became the president because it forced me
Yeah.
to like welcome and start the meeting.
Yes. I
So
can't
that was probably
speak
the best thing I did.
highly enough about Toastmasters. And yeah, people assume it's for folks who are already comfortable doing public speaking. And actually, I would say no, this is where you need to be if you're not comfortable with public speaking,
Yeah.
right?
It's a very supportive environment because literally everyone there
Yeah.
is terrified. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's really nice. Let's do some rapid fire before I let you
All right.
go. Does that sound
Sounds
fun?
like a great time. I'm terrified, but let's go.
Oh, perfect. All right, Michelle, what's the most important part of your morning routine?
Oh, coffee, cup of coffee. I ain't dealing with anything until I have that. Yeah.
Absolutely. What show are you currently streaming?
Oh, okay. Okay. Don't judge. We listen and we don't judge. Dead Boys Detectives on Netflix, which is a fantastic little fun series, a supernatural series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What do you do to relax at the end of a hectic day?
Oh, toss up, 50-50 toss up. I'm either baking a loaf of bread or I'm gaming. I'm video gaming. Elden Ring or something. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Oh boy. Doing absolutely nothing, surrounded by family and friends, and just hanging out, preferably somewhere sunny. Yeah.
What is one mental health strategy for managing hard days?
Get sleep.
Yeah.
Get sleep.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed. What's your favorite type of vacation?
Oh, total unplanned, go somewhere, don't have an agenda, lay around and do nothing. That's my ideal.
If you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, this is a rapid fire question. This is impossible. I think, you know what? I would say probably Albert Einstein. I've always been very curious to have a conversation with him. Yes, Albert Einstein.
Nice. And lastly, if you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
Um, a little saying I always put together and cultivate for myself is my mission in life is to look beyond the limits and achieve what seems impossible, and that is something I live my life by. I'm even getting a tattoo, I think, with yeah, I like
So cool. Love that. Well, this has been so fun.
yes, thank
Really
you.
enjoyed listening to you speak.
Yes, thanks. It was a lot of fun, Blake. Thanks for having me on.
Everybody, you've been tuning in to the Modern Customer Podcast. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on social media, including Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and more.